Okay, and ladies and gentlemen, good evening, Democrats.
Good evening, Democrats.
Good evening, Democrats.
Okay, there's some new folks here. I don't think they know the drill, so let's try it again. Good evening,
Good evening, Democrats.
Good evening,
Good evening,
Democrats.
Thank
Democrats.
you. Welcome everybody in here, out there. My name is John Katz. I'm the president of the Santa Monica Democratic Club. I hear some music playing. That's okay. Thanks so much for joining, everybody. We have a really exciting event coming up on Sunday, the Sammy Awards. Does everybody know about the Sammy Awards? If you've got a ticket already, raise your hand. Okay, lots of opportunities. Michelle, we can get some tickets here. Folks, we have our signature fundraiser event. Michelle's been leading the charge to plan this awesome event. This is the flyer. We're honoring 4 great progressive leaders. First is Representative Julia Brownlee, who you may remember if you've been around long enough. You started her political career here on the school board in Santa Monica, and then she went to the Assembly representing us, and eventually not representing Santa Monica, but went to the House and has been so great there, including flipping a red seat to blue, which is a big thing that we love here in Democratic clubs. LACDP Chair Mark Ramos, he's been leading the county party for the last several years and helping us lead the charge here in LA County to get more Democrats elected. Former Mayor Gleam Davis, who we all know as a great local leader, especially during a difficult time for Santa Monica, economically and in terms of the leadership, and she helped to bridge over to the new era. And finally, Reverend Janet McKeithen, no stranger to this church, who's been such a great leader in this community on issues like LGBT rights, immigration justice for so many years. So Michelle, why don't you fill in the details that we need to share here, and I'll leave it to you.
Hey everyone, nice to see you tonight. There is a QR code right here on the flyer to buy tickets or to become a sponsor. The restaurant is Teatro on Colorado and Stewart, and there's free parking underneath. Beautiful courtyard, and it's all ours on Sunday. So we hope to see you there. I also want to do a quick mention that No Kings 3 is coming up on March 28th. I can use volunteers. I think, well, I know that we've had 5,000 plus people out for King 1 and King 2, and I think we're going to have even more than that for Kings 3. So we're growing this time. We are doing a democracy fair at Ocean Park in Alta, where the picnic tables are, and all sorts of organizations are coming to talk to us about how to get involved. There will be a DJ, there will be music, it will be fun, it will be joyous, it will be safe and peaceful, and we hope to see you all there. So if you have any questions about either activity, please see me. I'll be in the back of the room tonight.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, so our next meeting is 2 weeks from tonight, Zoom only. It's our biannual primary endorsement meeting. RSVP for that meeting in advance, please, because if you plan to vote, you must not only be a member, but also have RSVP'd using the Google form. So that's the number one thing we get in the middle of the election. Ballots are out. Why didn't I get my ballot? Make sure that, and we're telling you, we're giving 2 weeks advance notice. Please fill out that form and RSVP. We're going to be endorsing for governor, lieutenant governor, insurance commissioner, superintendent, board of equalization, the House, the Assembly, and sheriff. And so if you've been coming to our meetings for the last year or so, you know those are the candidates, those are the fields of candidates we've been hearing from recently. And now tonight is our last night in the Year Plus candidate series for the 2026 cycle, and we're really excited to hear from those candidates. But now in 2 weeks, it'll finally be time to vote, to make our endorsements. We'll also be considering the judicial candidates. More details about that to come, but that's one of our signature events every 2 years, is hearing from all the people running for LA Superior Court. We'll also be having a presentation from the Legislative Committee at that meeting. While we're voting, what we'll be talking about, our Legislative VP, Isabel, will be presenting all of the bills that the club is about to endorse. One more thing on that, we usually don't have the candidates themselves at the endorsement meeting. We have surrogates come to speak. So if you are a member of the club or a community member who feels really strongly about one of the candidates we'll be considering for endorsement, and you think that you might be a good person to make the case for that person, if you could just reach out to the club. We want to make sure that all the candidates that possibly can are represented and have somebody speaking on their behalf right before everybody goes to vote. One more thing before we start, one more announcement before we start. April 22nd will be the next meeting after that, and we're going to have our board election. And so we announced that. Candidates are already starting to come forward, but if you are interested in joining the executive board of the club, the deadline to apply is March 23rd. You can email the club, smdemocrats@gmail, or you can reach out to our secretary, Lynn Servini.
John?
Okay, one more thing before we bring out our guests. Just because, like I mentioned, this is the last in the candidate series that has been going on for a year. So the questions that we're asking, we're trying to match in general on the topics over the course of multiple meetings. So we did take all of your questions that you've been submitting over the last several months, and we're combining those and making sure that we have a streamlined set of questions that we can ask the candidates to hit on as many different topics as we can while they're here. So just please understand that if you don't hear your question asked, we're trying to get as many different topics hit from all the different questions we've gotten over the last year addressed tonight. So that being said, let's bring out our first guest. She currently serves as California State Treasurer, where she oversees the state's investments and financing programs that help fund everything from housing and infrastructure to schools and small business development. Before that, she served in the state on the Board of Equalization, and every year at the Democratic Convention, she throws the best karaoke party, and now she's running for Lieutenant Governor. Let's please welcome Fiona Ma.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been a while since I've appeared before your club. It was when I ran for state treasurer back in 2018. So it's great to see everyone again. Just a little bit about myself. I am the oldest child of immigrant parents. They met at a church picnic in Toronto, Canada, ended up settling in New York. And at that time, my father was going to the University of Glasgow on scholarship. And I know that Sandy also was from Glasgow, and today is her birthday, so happy birthday, Sandy. And that's how I got my name, Fiona Ma. Fiona is a Celtic name. I was conceived in Scotland, and that is on my birth certificate, because my mom really loved that name. Then settled in New York, where I was born and raised, lived with my grandparents in Chinatown for the first 4 years while my parents were working in the nearby town, saved enough money, and we bought our first house in Great Neck, Long Island, because of the excellent public schools. My mom was an art teacher for 20 years, and because she had a good job, a union job with paid health care, my dad was able to venture out and start a couple of businesses, and that is what the American dream is all about. After college, I went to school at the Rochester Institute of Technology. After I graduated, my parents had moved to San Francisco, and so I moved out here and then started my professional career with Ernst & Winnie in the real estate tax group, a CPA. Spent 5 years there, and after started my own practice when I was 28 years old, representing small businesses, trying to get contracting opportunities. And that was the first time I got involved in politics. And I realized that these people, politicians, are in charge of the money, the budgets, make the laws, can appoint people, and there were not a lot of women or Asians in politics at the time, and so I started to be curious about politics. Got my first job with Senator John Burton as a district representative for 7.5 years. Before I ran for the San Francisco Board of Supervisors in 2002 in the Sunset District, which was the Chinese seat. And back then, I did get elected, and I was the only Asian and only the second woman on that board. Then I got elected to the State Assembly in 2006. My first 4 years was as Majority Whip. My last 2 years was as Speaker Pro Tem under 2 different governors. Arnold Schwarzenegger was the governor, and then Jerry Brown. I had 3 different speakers, Fabian Nunez, Karen Bass, as well as John Perez, and during the Great Recession. And then I termed out, and I had to sit out for 2 years, and then ran for the State Board of Equalization, which is a tax board. By this time, my dad was kind of happy that I was not wasting my education. And then when I got elected as state treasurer, like, woo, the doors of, heaven opened up to me. So he was very, very proud that I am the treasurer of the 4th largest economy in the world. So I've been part of the Democratic Party for 30 years. Any of you go to the convention? Yep. So thank you very much. I got 50% of the vote. I've been polling pretty well at 28% versus my other competitors. And I've gotten the endorsement of 75% of the legislature, as well as your Congressman, Ted Lieu, and your Assembly Member, Rick Zabur, and Julia Brownlee, since you mentioned it. She was actually my seatmate for 6 years. And so we were trusting each other to kind of push the buttons in case, we weren't able to be on the floor. So I've also gotten the endorsement of at least 500 local elected officials from all 58 counties. And I think that is, my hallmark is that I am curious, I want to listen, I want to learn, and I want to hear what everybody is doing in all 58 counties. Now, as your state banker, I take in all the revenues. It's over $3 trillion a year. I manage the state's idle funds. That balance is about $168 billion. And I also issue all the bonds for the state of California, the UC and the CSU systems that goes to build the buildings as well as infrastructure. And I also fund and finance affordable housing, children's hospitals, emergency crisis beds, advanced manufacturing, public transportation, schools. I have a lot of small business programs, including 4 savings programs. And I also sit on CalPERS, CalSTRS, California Earthquake Authority, the iBank. So if anybody needs any money, please come see me. So I'm very popular these days because I take in the money and I also give out the money for many, many projects. And right now, I'm running for lieutenant governor because I feel like we need qualified, experienced people who have fought, the president, Trump 1.0, and now it's 2.0, but also 3 out of my 4 elected positions have been in deficits. And so we are expecting a structural deficit over the next couple years, and I have been leading the state out of these deficits, so I know what is real and what is maybe not real or a threat. And even now, over the past year, we've been doing a lot to fend off all of the cuts that the president is threatening us with. So I'm very honored to be here and ready for questions if you are.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah. So the lieutenant governor is not just the vice governor. There's specific roles that they have to fill. Can you walk us through what those responsibilities are and what you see the biggest opportunities to make an impact?
Sure. So the lieutenant governor sits on 5 boards, the UC, CSU, and community college boards, as well as the Coastal Commission and state lands. The lieutenant governor also is supposed to oversee the Economic Development Council, I don't believe we can have one council in the state. We're 58 counties. Every county is different. Regions are different. We have diverse economies. And so I'm hoping that I'm going to convene many economic development councils to continue to create jobs and bring more businesses and investment to California. And then this lieutenant governor has been delegated the international relations duties. And as the fourth largest economy in the world, I think we have to do a better job in building those bridges around the globe. But as on the education board, I am a product of public schools. My mother was a public school teacher, and having affordable, quality, free education has always been a priority for my family. Tuition is too high these days. Too many young people are incurring high student loan debt. There is not enough housing on these campuses, so many are either living in their cars or having to drive a long way just to try to get their education. And now, with everything that is changing around the world, as well as technology, we need to create more real pathways for these young people so that they know that if they are in school, that they have real opportunities for paid internships, for mentorships, and pathways to real jobs. Because there's too many folks, even right now, that cannot find a job. Add affordability on top of that, and these young people, we really need to figure out how we are going to create more opportunities, including apprenticeship programs.
Thanks. So California's affordability crisis touches on everything: housing, infrastructure. Given your experience as state treasurer, what tools should the state be leveraging to finance more housing, more infrastructure, and how can the lieutenant governor help with that?
Yeah. So right now, I oversee the two committees that allocates the bonds and the tax credits that go to subsidize affordable housing. And I think I've done a pretty good job over the last 7 years in streamlining the processes, having one executive director that oversees both of the agencies. And thanks to the governor, Gavin Newsom, he's given us an extra $500 million in state low-income housing tax credits. And that has allowed us to build more new construction across the entire state, not just around the big cities, but also in smaller communities and rural California. So we need to continue to do that. I am a real estate tax accountant by training, and so I chair every one of those committees to make sure that we are distributing the money effectively, efficiently, and meeting the housing goals and needs across the state. We also need workforce housing. There is not a lot of subsidy for middle-class workforce housing. And so when investors come to California, they always want to go into affordable housing. And I say, well, affordable housing, are you ready to be in it for 55 years? And they're like, 55 years, that's a long time. And I said, well, we need more housing for our teachers, for our nurses, for our first responders, for our government workers, and especially around our schools. So that is one area that I have been pushing more housing. And then for me, I think we need to create more multi-generational housing. My father just passed away in October, but we had been living together with my mother. She passed 7 years ago, but in the same house. And these days, a lot of folks don't have, either kids or grandparents. And so we need to create those artificial families to help one another, whether it's to babysit or whether it's just to go maybe pick up groceries or help. My dad always had computer issues. And so just living together, I think, was, very, very helpful. So I have been really pushing for more intergenerational housing.
Great. Well, so also as state treasurer, you've overseen billions of dollars in investments in bond programs for climate resilience, disaster recovery. How do we use the financial tools of the state to protect taxpayers and to help people who are in climate disaster zones.
Yeah. So I was there in the legislature in 2006 when we passed AB 32, our historic climate change act by Fran Pavley as well as Fabian and signed by Arnold Schwarzenegger. And back then we were the first. And so now that we have proven that we can set these goals and meet these goals, we are now the leaders in climate action. I have two agencies that issues some tax incentives as well as tax bonds for green companies that are coming and manufacturing here in the state of California. And I also issue the green bonds, mostly for water, clean water, water-type projects for the state of California. So there are ways to leverage the bonds. I think the state, many of us have passed many of these bond measures, and we will continue to do that and continue to be the leaders. You know, I remember coming to California 30 years ago. Remember when there was so much smog, right? And now, look at the rest of the state, right? And we are proving that we are leading with our values and that investors are also wanting to buy our California bonds. So that is good news for California. Our credit rating has gone up twice since I became treasurer. It still remains high. And even today, we were in the market, even though it was tumultuous, we were still able to get great rates, and lots of investors still want to invest in our California bonds, especially our green bonds.
Great. So with growing federal pressure coming on issues all over the place, immigration policy, voting rights, how can you use the Lieutenant Governor's platform to influence and defend Californians' rights from overreach from the federal government? Yeah.
So over the past 30 years, I have been a leader. I stand up for what is right. As a daughter of immigrants, I know exactly how it feels to be discriminated against. As a woman in elected office, I've always been told it's not your time. I've always have to jump through hoops that are, you know, higher than most. And so defending our civil rights, our human rights, our right to protest has always been top of mind for me, and I will continue to use the Lieutenant Governor's office as a bully pulpit to support those and to defend against those that are being attacked or their rights are being taken away, because I've been there. I know what it feels like, and if I'm not defending others, who is going to defend? You know, we all need to continue to defend each other, especially what's happening like with the ICE raids. They are picking up, you know, our Latino brothers and sisters. They are now picking up our Asian brothers and sisters. Anyone whose skin color is not light, you know, we are all targets. And so I live that every day. I am out there defending, letting people know what their rights are in case they are approached, in case they are taken away. But I think we also need more funding for attorneys, because there is not enough attorneys that are able to help get these folks out of the detention centers, ensure their safety, and it's just really, really heartbreaking what's happening right now. And it's going to continue to happen, unfortunately, over the next 3 years unless we all stick together, support each other a little bit more, and make sure that everybody is defending everybody's rights, especially here in California.
Yeah, definitely. So I finally want to ask you, we don't really know, the races are wide open, right? We don't know who the governor is going to be, but whoever that is, they're going to have a lot of voices in their ear, and you'll be one of them. And we talked about a lot of issues tonight, but what do you think will be the issues that you'll be the strongest on, that governor will be hearing from you most about?
Well, because I'm an accountant, I hope that they will lean on me on financial issues, especially budgets. I also want to use this office to work on difficult problems that have not been able to be addressed or fixed. Long-term health care, long-term care insurance. We are all getting older. I may live till 100 years old, and I don't have kids. And I did not buy long-term health insurance when I was younger. And so this is an issue. Can we create a program so that those who need that extra assistance are able to address it? With the schools, I've been starting to work on fentanyl awareness. Many people are buying things off the internet, and we are trying to let the kids know, do not buy anything, especially drugs, off of the internet. Many of it is laced with fentanyl. And that goes for the adults too, because I know when costs increase, maybe we want to buy a drug we think is going to be a little cheaper on the internet, but one pill can kill. And so that is another issue that I would like to raise. And of course, housing. We need to build more housing. I'm going to continue to work with the next treasurer on building more housing and affordability. It is just not affordable for too many people. And there's many, many reasons for that. But, we just need to figure out how to ensure that all of us are able to afford just the basics. Our seniors are able to stay in their homes. Our next generation wants to stay here and has the ability to even think about owning a home. Those are critical, things that I do think about. The climate, sitting on the Coastal Commission as well as the state lands, protecting our coast against offshore drilling. I don't take money from oil, the oil industry, tobacco, guns, charter schools, for example, and I'm a co-author for Senator Lena Gonzalez's bill to divest from CalPERS and CalSTRS from oil companies. So we'll work on many, many things that I've been, working on, from domestic violence to human trafficking to just so many of the issues that are really difficult to address. I'm very good at bringing together stakeholders. I have the patience to hold meetings for 2 years so we can come to some consensus. And because I served in the legislature, I will continue to work very closely with our legislature to author or to sponsor legislation, after convening these working groups and coming up with some solutions.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Fiona, Ma, everybody. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, I'm pleased to invite a friend of the club who's running for the CD11 LA City Council race. Now, Santa Monica Dem Club doesn't endorse, so this is just she's coming to speak as a friend of the club and give us an update about her campaign. Let's please welcome Faiza Malik.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Democrats, for having me today. I love being at the church in Ocean Park, so it's lovely to be here for this meeting. My name is Faiza Malik. I'm running for LA City Council District 11, which is the LA City district that surrounds the city of Santa Monica. I am I'll provide a little bit of background on me if you don't already know me or familiar with my story. I am born and raised here in Southern California. I am the proud daughter of immigrants from Pakistan and Burma. My family immigrated here in the 1970s and settled in Hawthorne. And I have family members that lived in Culver City, in Santa Monica, Westchester, West LA. I actually just recently knocked on the door of a relative of mine in Westchester, so that was really fun. And for the past and my grandparents were community builders. My grandfather founded the mosque in Inglewood in the 1970s on Arbor Vitae. My grandmother owned a dry cleaner, and then she owned a corner grocery store. My uncle managed the Jamba Juice in Marina del Rey, where I worked for a summer in high school. And LA was a place that really allowed my family to come here as new immigrants to this country and build a life for themselves. And my parents met at El Camino Community College in the South Bay. And because they got access to that education as new immigrants to this country, they were able to give me a life. And I was so proud. I was born here in Torrance, and then I grew up in Orange County, so my parents live in Yorba Linda now. And I had a very secure middle-class childhood. My dad became a pharmacist, and he worked at Costco for 26 years, which funded my college education. And because of that, I was able to get financial aid to go to Brown and go to college there on the East Coast. And I decided to become a civil rights lawyer because I didn't know any Muslims that were civil rights lawyers. In the aftermath of 9/11, as a daughter of immigrants and Muslim, it really impacted me and my political identity. And so that is what got me engaged politically. And I have been politically engaged since I was 18 years old. I went to law school at Michigan, and I have been a community development lawyer for the past 15 years. And the reason I'm a community development lawyer, now that I'm running for office and reflecting on it, I feel like it really comes from my grandfather's legacy of being a community builder. What I really enjoy doing is using the law to advocate for change with communities, to build institutions that we need. And what I've been doing now for the past 15 years is doing just that. I started out in New York. I worked for the New York City Council for 3 years, writing housing and transportation law. I met my husband in New York. He's from Michigan. And then we had a baby in New York, and that's when we decided to move back home, because as people are familiar, and since I grew up around family and grandparents, I really wanted my kids to have that experience too. So we moved back home in 2017. I've been a public counsel attorney now for the past 8 years, fighting for renters' rights, fighting for affordable housing. I've worked on many cases with Mike Soloff to advocate for rent control in Culver City, in Santa Monica, in LA City. I was so proud to be part of a coalition that advocated for a COVID eviction moratorium, which kept thousands of people from falling into homelessness during the pandemic. And then when the landlords filed lawsuits against the city to take those eviction protections out, we intervened on behalf of tenants' rights groups and defended those up to the Supreme Court twice. And then after the COVID protections expired, we strengthened permanent tenant protections in the city of LA. We passed universal just cause protections. Recently, I helped lower our rent increase formula for rent stabilized tenants. I've been fighting for affordable housing. I've been advocating for a project called Venice Dell in CD11 for several years. Many of you might be familiar with this project. It is an approved affordable housing project that will provide 120 units of housing, affordable housing and permanent supportive housing to solve our homelessness crisis right here on the West Side, where we desperately need affordable housing. And that is why I'm running for office, because our council member has been blocking this project for 3 years and is costing our taxpayers millions of dollars to stop affordable housing. And that is unacceptable to me, because as someone, we know that how we solve our homelessness crisis is by keeping people in their homes and building more affordable housing. And we have to, and we just heard Fiona speak about all the levers we have at the state level. But at the local level, if our local leaders are fighting against those very projects in high opportunity neighborhoods like Santa Monica, like Venice, like the West Side, then we will not be able to solve our housing crisis. And it matters to me because I'm a mom with little kids, and my husband and I, we're renters in Venice. And my parents really wished I moved back to Orange County, but we were like, no, we are city people. So we moved back here. I lived on the West Side since then, and it is so expensive for us to be able to buy a home. Like, I've looked in Santa Monica, and we can't afford to buy a house here. So we rent in Venice, and we love living here. We love our community here. I want my kids to continue to stay here. So I'm running because I want the West Side to be a place where we can all have a future, where our workers can have a future, where our teachers can live, as Fiona was saying, our healthcare workers. I want my kids to grow up in a mixed income, diverse community. And I want my taxpayer dollars to go to fund the programs that create safety and security through investments. I want us to make sure we are investing in transit. I want to invest in supporting our small businesses. I want to make sure we're supporting our parks and youth programs. Those are the things that are the long-term things that will create a livable neighborhood for everybody. And for me, I do not believe our council member prioritizes that. So that's why I think we need change on the West Side. I do not think our status quo is solving homelessness. It's not solving our housing crisis. It's not creating enough economic opportunity on the West Side. I'm so proud to be endorsed by the LA County Federation of Labor, as long as all of the SEIUs. I'm endorsed by our teachers union. I am endorsed by healthcare workers. I am endorsed by many Democratic clubs. I know the Santa Monica Democratic Club can't endorse me, but I am endorsed by our neighboring Democratic clubs in Culver City and Miracle Mile. And I'm so proud to also be endorsed by progressive groups and housing groups, tenants' rights groups. This reflects my long record of fighting for working people for over my entire career. And when I'm elected, I know this is the work I'm going to continue to do. I am not taking any money from the real estate lobby. I'm not taking any money from fossil fuel interests. I'm not taking money from the police union. They, in fact, are putting in $300,000 to defeat me. And I think that that is wrong in our democracy. And so I'm very proud to be running a clean money campaign supported by people. The majority of my donations are under $100, which I'm very proud of. So thank you all so much for letting me come and speak to the club. And I have to run to a fundraiser for myself, but I would be happy to always come back and answer questions. And John knows how to reach me. Thank you. And thank you, John, for personally endorsing me. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks so much, Faiza, and we wish you the best in the campaign. And now we'll go to our next guest. He served as the Speaker of the State Assembly from 2016 to 2023, the longest tenure in that role in modern California history, and he's now running for State Superintendent of Public Instruction. Let's welcome former Speaker Anthony Rendon.
Good evening. I was supposed to be here last month, and I had to cancel at the last minute because of a child care issue. To alleviate that, I brought my daughter this time, who's downing an entire pack of Thin Mints. But Anthony Rendon served in the state legislature from 2012 to 2024, was Speaker from 2016 to 2023. For me, my service in the legislature was a continuation of the work I had done throughout my career. I worked in Head Start. I first worked in gang programs, first-time offender at-risk youth gang programs, then discovered the power of early childhood education. And in the communities I was working in, those families and communities that had the greatest access to early childhood education didn't end up in my gang programs. So for 20 years, I ran Head Start programs, infants and toddler programs. I ran some migrant farm worker programs. In 2011, June 30th, 2011, the state legislature and the Governor Schwarzenegger cut $1.8 billion in early childhood education. On July 1st, I laid off 300 employees. I told 1,100 families that they weren't going to have childcare 4 days from then. I was irate, ran for office, and got elected in 2012. Proud of the work we did, particularly in and around education. We went from per pupil funding, we were 48th in the country, to the top 10 by the time my class termed out. Was proud that we funded and implemented transitional kindergarten. Was proud that for the first time in the history of our state, we decreased Cal State tuition in 2022. Was proud of all of that, but what I've seen, particularly with the Federal Department of Education and the soon late great Federal Department of Education, is that public education is under attack like it has been at no time in the history of our country. The first time Donald Trump was president, I was aggressive, sued the administration 14 times, won 10 of those times, lost 2, and twice they kind of pulled back and stopped doing what they were doing. I think as Democrats, we do a good job of developing policy. We have a good set of values, but we're often not as aggressive as Republicans are. I think the position of Superintendent of Public Instruction needs to be on the offensive, needs to be going after Donald Trump before Donald Trump comes after us, particularly with respect to public education, particularly with respect to California, and particularly with respect to our kids and most vulnerable populations. Thanks.
Thank you. So, as the speaker, you oversaw massive budgets and constant negotiations. How can you use that experience to move policy through the State Board of Education and the legislature so that we're delivering results for schools?
Yeah, it's a good question. I negotiated 7 budgets, sat across from 2 pro tems, sat across from 2 governors, and negotiated, again, 7 budgets. Remember, my second budget, Jerry Brown he had been mayor of Oakland. He started a military charter school in Oakland, and he wanted the school to be funded through the state budget, and I said no. And it was a very difficult thing for somebody who had been in his second year and was, in grade school when Jerry Brown was governor the first time. But I think it's that sort of toughness and honesty that I think that we have to have, particularly in and around budget negotiations. There's not a lot of honesty in this budget. Proposition 98 is being shortchanged. I think we all know that. It's very obvious the Department of Finance is shortchanging public education somewhere between $2 and $6 billion. There's a lot of ways of fudging the numbers, and they're being fudged this year in particular, like none I've seen before. I have the experience in seeing how that's done. And I have the experience in terms of calling out governors and pro tems in that regard.
So at the national level, we're seeing the dismantling of the Department of Education. Can you describe how that's affecting California students and educators, and what can we do as a superintendent to fill the vacuum?
Yeah, I mean, when I was running early childhood education organizations on the east side of Los Angeles, we generally had waiting lists of about 700 kids. That was when this is before Schwarzenegger, when early childhood education was being as well funded as it had been up to that point. If federal Head Start is cut, I cannot imagine what the waiting list would look like. The trickle-down effect, the impact, we would still operate childcare programs in this state, but a lot of the kids who are in the federally funded Head Start programs would have to trickle into our state programs, causing a giant hit to those programs. It's interesting that there are so many rural voters who are Donald Trump voters, because the impact, particularly on rural schools, of the Trump administration, the demise of the federal Department of Education, is mind-boggling. To this point right now, there's been about $800 million in cuts to rural assistance programs for rural schools. I don't know why rural voters haven't figured that out, or why it doesn't piss them off, because they seem. Anyway, that's not our problem here. But yeah, no, the impacts are great. The impacts are great in urban areas. The impacts are great with respect to early childhood education, and they're just profound throughout the country.
Another big issue is mental health and safety in schools after the pandemic and return to school, and how students are adapting to that. What's your plan to improve mental health for students and teachers, and how do we fund it? Yeah,
I served on the Cal State Board of Regents and the UC Board of Trustees for 7 years, including during COVID. The increase in mental health requests in the Cal States went up 23% during COVID, and about 33% during COVID in the UCs. 23% in Cal States and 33% in the UCs. And what's interesting is it hasn't subsided since then. Ultimately, when I look at the difference, again, my experience has always been in early childhood education. When I look at the difference between Head Start, the full services offered, the ancillary services like mental health, versus the child care programs of the state, which are great, but purely curricular, and they don't have the ancillary services, the impact on kids is profound. The federal programs have a greater impact. The way to meld the two is to make sure that we have as many community schools as possible. The community schools grant program in the state needs to be greatly expanded. I understand why it hasn't. The data on community schools just came out about 6 months ago now, but now there's no excuse. Right now we have looked at the data on community schools and the impact of community schools, and we need to greatly expand those programs. And those will make sure that we have mental health professionals in our schools from community-based organizations nearby.
What's your view on the growth of the charter schools and private school influence in California, and how do we balance innovation with accountability and protect the integrity of the public education system?
Yeah, I was at a charter school today in the old district that I used to represent. Charter schools were supposed to be about innovation. That's in the charter of the charter schools, right? They were supposed to be about innovation and having us do new things. They have now become competitive with our traditional public schools. Some of that is problematic because our public schools have failed because of a lack of accountability. The issue and distinctions between charter schools and traditional public schools would be, those differences would be, the problems would be ameliorated if we were able to bring up our traditional public schools. The way to do that is with additional revenue. We don't talk about it anymore. It's the third rail in California politics. We have been, as a state, our local entities have been cash strapped since the passage of Proposition 13, and we don't talk about that. And we never talk about that. And every consultant in Sacramento says, don't bring that up. It's a third rail, it's a third rail, it's a third rail. I was supportive of the split roll in 2021, I believe, 2022. The years start to meld together. But we need to relook at Proposition 13. It's benefiting an aging generation of homeowners, and it's not helping any of us at all.
So California is facing a teacher shortage, especially with special ed, STEM, and rural districts. What's the plan to recruit and retain teachers, and how do we address the pay and the workload pressures that are driving them out?
Thanks. There's a couple of things we need to do. First of all, workforce housing has been, we have seen successful workforce housing models in 3 different school districts throughout the state. We now know that that model can be successful. Those models need to be replicated throughout the state. 2 of the districts are fairly large districts, and if you look at the impact that could have, housing prices make up for most Californians about 22% of their income. So yeah, if you could help to provide workforce housing for teachers, that would have a tremendous impact. But with respect to pay, again, it goes back to the revenue part. I was speaker for 7 years. During those 7 years, 12 different times we had opportunities to increase revenue, and we did that as a state. Those were tough votes for some Democrats in the Central Valley, but we thought it was important. We did it. We need to continue to do that. It's a revenue problem.
How would you close opportunity gaps for students of color, English learners, and students with disabilities?
Yeah, it's interesting. My 6-year-old daughter goes to a very good public school, but we live in a city that doesn't have its own specific school district. So if you live in any of the 4 different, directions within the city, you go to a different school district. The differences in education that the kids who play in the same park in our city get is mind-boggling. Those inequities are mind-boggling. The best way to do that is to change the way we reimburse schools. We reimburse schools based on attendance now. We need to reimburse them based on enrollment. This is a model that I think 17 states have adopted within the past 10 years. 17 states. I'm not sure that is 10 years. I don't want to get that wrong. But 17 states have adopted reimbursing schools based on enrollment instead of attendance, and we need to do that too.
Okay, thanks. So we got through my questions, or our predetermined questions. So if anyone has audience questions, we have a few extra minutes for Speaker Rendon. If anyone has one, raise your hand. Yeah, we'll go to Mike first. Sam, you'll be next.
Thanks so much. You probably saw the coverage about Mississippi's success and actually, the most at-risk students, getting them back on track. Are there things that we can learn from that we should be implementing here in California?
Yeah, I think the different names for it, the Mississippi Miracle, different names for it. I'm going to go to Mississippi, I believe, the beginning of April to look at that model. the state legislature took a big step forward in approving, allowing districts to use phonics as a curricular model. That'll get us a little ways there, but I'm curious to see the other things that Mississippi is doing as well. Mississippi is, they're not as funded as well as our schools. So I think that's an interesting dynamic. So it does seem as though some of the issues are definitely curricular in the way that they're teaching. So I'm excited to look at the model, and I'll let you know what I find.
Sam's next, right here.
I'd like to know whether you've changed your mind regarding CalCare, the good health care that doesn't rely on insurance companies.
No, I haven't changed my mind. I always had the same opinion. I'm sure you're referring to SB 562. It was a bill that came out of the Senate, authored by Senator Ricardo Lara. He sent it to the Assembly. It had, I think, 37 blanks in it. There was no reference to the fact that the federal government needed Donald Trump, as President of the United States, had to provide a waiver for all of our medical funding. It had no service delivery mechanism. It had no reference to Proposition 98. If we had adopted that bill, it would have altered the percentage of money we spend on education in the state, which would have had to go back to voters. There were 37 different problems with the bill. Over the course of 9 months, I contacted the author 14 different times, asking him to come to my office to meet with me to fix the bill, and he never did. So I haven't changed my opinion about single payer. I think single payer is great. If you're going to be serious about it, then you should have a serious author and somebody who really cares about policy. But if it's just showmanship and a game to get the endorsement of the California Nurses Association, then I have no interest in it.
Judy.
I used to be the director of child development services in the school district here.
Oh, cool. Santa Monica.
So, and we had Head Start programs, which the district decided to not continue because so few families qualified. And it was important for those kinds of services to be available for all children and not just the very poorest families. So what I'm wondering, but what had to be given up was all the additional services that Head Start provides. And I just wondered if anybody's thinking about that for the state and what the state could do to create a kind of Head Start program that includes more people.
Yeah, I am. I am for sure. Like I said, for 20 years I ran Head Start programs, federally funded Head Start programs. You probably know the model, right? It's here in California, most of them, we were a delegate agency through the LA County Office of Education. They would take 7 to 9%, which always bugged me. I wasn't quite sure what they were doing with that 7 to 9%. But alongside those programs, we were running state childcare and state preschool. Great programs, but they didn't have the ancillary services. They didn't have the optometric care. They didn't have the dental care. They didn't have the, I think, 3 medical visits. They didn't have the 2 meals a day, 2 snacks a day. And the difference between the programs was incredible. The state programs, again, are good from a curricular standpoint, but don't have the ancillary services. I think we've come a little ways with TK, with transitional kindergarten. I think, particularly transitional kindergarten models utilized at community school sites. But like I said earlier, there aren't enough community schools. I don't know if everybody's aware, community schools are this great sort of idea where you take a school in a community and they're always surrounded by nonprofit organizations, right? And you bring the nonprofits in. And we've been asking teachers to do more and more and more and more. Teachers shouldn't have to serve as counselors. Teachers shouldn't have to operate food banks, particularly when you have those models in the community, right? So I think at this point, until we change Prop 13, at this point, the most cost-effective way of making sure that our child care programs function similarly to Head Start programs is to make sure that we have ancillary services from community-based organizations in the area. Thank you. And thanks for working in ECE. It's thankless.
Next up from Zoom, we have Brooke. Well, you got to unmute first, Brooke. She's unmuted. Nate? Oh, okay.
Am I still not being heard?
You're good.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that snafu. I'm an educator. I'm an itinerant educator. I've taught from South Central to Pacoima since COVID. I do generally long-term assignments, so I have quite a bit of data in the city specifically post-COVID. I am really glad you're addressing Prop 13 because I think that is a huge issue as to why we don't have the revenue. And switching to funding based on enrollment rather than attendance, because that's a big part of why they've cut some support staff, because they don't have enough funding, because kids are afraid to go to school. They're not getting the attendance threshold hit to get the funding in order to hire all the support staff and kind of the people that do the positions I do. So then, of course, the kids suffer. Then you couple that with the federal budget cuts to kids with that need support services like English language learners and special needs. So it's epically horrible all over the county. We all know that. What I do want to offer, and maybe this can answer your question, and maybe then you can then answer mine. You had mentioned you didn't know why rural areas didn't really understand why cutting Head Start was a problem. The answer to that, and it has to do with the federal government, is because I'm from rural America, so many of the churches are taking over early childcare. And that's by design. They want to, in order to usher in this theocracy, with Pete Hegseth leading the way, they want to get children completely dependent on these megachurches. And so until there's sort of an understanding of that linkage, and while the education is being dismantled, you trace it back to Betsy DeVos and how she laid the groundwork, or you go even further back than that with the Reagan era, creating abortion as a wedge issue to try to stop desegregation in schools. So it is a long-term plan. They want a theocracy. So if there could, my question to you is, would you be open to understanding that linkage? Because I feel like we're always 10 steps behind, and this agenda has been out in the open. They want to take over the country. They want to dismantle public education, and they want religious institutions to take over it. And I say that because there are religious schools that are amazing, right? You've got great Catholic schools, great Jewish schools, great, religiously informed schools. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this whole thing that is now playing out that has been 40 years in the making. So are you looking at sort of those connective tissues, or would you be open to looking at that? And if so, what would be your ideas?
Yeah, thank you, Brooke. It's an interesting dynamic. It's a dynamic the dynamic you're talking about is manifesting itself at the federal level. In a very real sense, if you draw a straight line in this state from Coachella through the Inland Empire, through the Central Valley, up into Redding, the same dynamics playing out here. There's a huge difference between Eastern California and Western California, right? When I was a kid, there was always this north-south divide. It's not that anymore. Now it's east-west. And what's really interesting, Brooke, and I think this is a really fascinating topic, if you look at what's happening all over the world, if you look at what happened with Brexit, for example, London didn't turn out to vote. Rural England did, and the result was what we saw. In the election when the fascists got elected in Austria about 6 years ago, Vienna didn't vote, the rest of the country did. Hungary was the same thing. Le Pen could have won in France if Paris hadn't shown up, right? So yeah, there is this incredible divide between rural areas and urban areas that's manifesting itself in the US, it's manifesting itself in California, it's manifesting itself throughout the world. And I think as good Democrats, I think we have to understand it. I think we have to understand that. I'm sure I'm out of time or close, but I would say one more thing. I hope to get the endorsement of this club. I hope to win this election. If I don't, there is a candidate running from Chino Valley School District. I don't know if you know who she is. whose almost her entire campaign is built around an anti-trans platform. Her name is Sonia Shaw. She's the only Republican with any money on the ballot. But what's interesting is this is a nonpartisan office, right? You're not going to see D next to my name. You're not going to see R next to her name. We have an organization like the Heritage Foundation has funded the former superintendent of public instruction for the state of Oklahoma. He quit that job and took a job working for an organization that's being funded $100 million from the Heritage Foundation to really do what you're talking about, Brooke, to meld the church and public schools, which is in essence getting rid of public schools. So I hope I get your endorsement. I hope I win this race. If I don't, I'm all in for any Democrat who's running against Sonia Shaw, and I think we all should be too, because that's the scariest reality we could possibly have. And in a this is the only statewide office that's nonpartisan. In a nonpartisan statewide race, I could see the Republicans putting all their marbles behind, that's not really a phrase, is it? All their money, all their resources behind Sonia Shaw. So thanks for bringing that up.
No, thank you. Thank you for caring.
Okay, thank you so much, Speaker.
I hope you're not applauding Sonia Shaw.
No, yeah, right. Thanks so much, Speaker Rendon.
No
Thanks
problem.
for being here.
Cheers.
Thanks a lot. Okay, so now we're just about to be joined by Representative Porter, and while we're waiting, we have time for an announcement. Claudia, are you available now?
Yes, I am.
On Zoom? Yeah, here she comes. Okay, so Claudia Bautista-Nichols from Santa Monica Malibu Classroom Teachers Association is going to discuss an event this Saturday for the parcel tax. And after she's done, we'll hear from Representative Porter. Go ahead, Claudia.
Yes, thank you so much for this time. Good evening, everyone. My name is Claudia Bautista-Nichols, and I am the president of the Santa Monica Malibu Classroom Teachers Association. I am here tonight to ask you to help protect Santa Monica Public Schools. Our union is collecting signatures to place the Santa Monicans for Reliable School Funding initiative on the November ballot. Oh my God, Katie Porter's here. I'm sorry. I'm just a big fan, Katie. Sorry. Okay, sorry, I just saw that. By signing the petition, you are not voting for the tax today. You're simply giving Santa Monica voters the chance to decide whether we want to protect our schools from devastating cuts. Without a stable source, our district could be forced to lay off 73 teachers and eliminate critical programs like childhood education, arts, music, and support for the disadvantaged students. This measure would create a reliable parcel tax to keep our classrooms staffed, our programs intact, and our schools strong. Strong public schools benefit everyone. They protect property values, attract quality businesses, and strengthen the entire community. They also help reduce poverty, crime, and teen pregnancy, improving the quality of life for renters, homeowners, and local businesses. For decades, Santa Monica has helped fund our schools, and we thank you for it. But that support ends in 2027 due to the city budget challenges. This measure creates a local funding source that stays in Santa Monica and is independently overseen. Tonight, I'm simply asking you to sign the petition so voters can decide whether we want a reliable funding for our schools or not. Thank you so much for this time. You are welcome to come on 4th Street between 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. in front of Santa Monica High School. We will have teachers, parents, and other community members there to help you sign the petition so that we can get this on the ballot. And again, Katie Porter, I am such a big fan. I'm a teacher, and I am so excited you're running. So I'm giving the rest of my time to Miss Katie Porter.
Thank you so much, Claudia. So everyone be sure to sign the parcel tax and go to the event on Saturday. Okay. In January, we were joined in person by Congressmember Katie Porter. Unfortunately, she had a family emergency requiring her to leave early. We really appreciated that she made the effort to be there that night. She very generously agreed to join us again so we could finish the conversation. So let's join me in welcoming back Congresswoman Katie Porter.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very
Hold
much.
on, we're going to get the audio going. Is it good?
I keep talking.
Yeah. Okay, you're good.
Okay. First off, thank you, Claudia. I'm a big fan of all of our teachers, and I just want to say to everyone, if we can't fund education, we cannot have a future in our state. So this is how our economy grows. This is how we protect kids. This is how we live our values in a moment when democracy is under attack. Because education really is the front line of protecting our democracy. So when people say to me, what can we do about Donald Trump and democracy? Part of the answer is to invest and strengthen our education system and protect the free speech rights of those doing that work. So, all right, I'm ready to go. John, I don't have any particular, if you want me to give a spiel, I'm happy to, but I am mostly here to engage you all on questions. I'm really so appreciative that you were so kind and let me rush home. My daughter spent a long night in the ER. She is absolutely fine. She is just a 14-year-old girl with a bad stomach virus. So, but thank you for letting me get back. So I'll turn it back to you, John, for questions.
Thank you so much, Congressmember. So we'll just dive right in. What role do you think the state should play in increasing housing supply and addressing the housing crisis? Do you support an approach like Scott Wiener's SB 79 that encourages housing near transit, or a different approach? And then separately, but also on the subject of housing, what would you do to protect extremely low-income renters from eviction and falling into the homelessness cycle?
Yep. So I'm proud to be the candidate in this governor's race with a track record and years of experience working on housing policy from the perspective of protecting consumers, renters, and homeowners. I was appointed by then Attorney General Kamala Harris to be the monitor for the nationwide and California-specific settlement with the nation's 5 big banks. So really, in that capacity, got to sit with thousands of families across California, negotiate with banks, trying to make sure that they could keep their home if they could. If they couldn't, they could land with safe and good shelter. So we need to bring down the cost to build. That is the basic problem. We're spending more than other states to build. Some of that, of course, is driven by property values, but a lot of it isn't. So we take here in California about 22 months, almost 2 years, longer to build than Colorado. Now, I want to be very, very clear with everyone. We do not, and we should not, compromise our basic values, including environmental protections and worker protections. But Colorado cares about those things too, and they're able to get that building done faster, and that has the potential to help take 10 or 15% off the cost of housing. I'm also a big fan of wanting to modernize and innovate in how we build. That's everything from architectural design to building materials, to construction techniques, to housing finance. So for example, the 20% down payment that's required by the federal government for a traditional fixed rate loan, there isn't any real research that shows you need 20%. 10%, even 8 and 5% can be enough. So I support programs where California can come in and help fill that piece. On the homeownership side, on the rental side, definitely building more. Also making sure that we're building housing that sometimes the market doesn't want to build. They're quick to build studios. They are slow to build houses, apartment multifamily that is suitable for people with disabilities, for seniors with mobility or other impairments, and for people who have children and are going to be living in an apartment. So we don't have very many 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, even 4-bedroom apartments. I supported SB 79. I know that most of the leadership in Los Angeles did not. I did. I was the first gubernatorial candidate to speak out in favor of it. I think we need to be very, very clear that areas that have density, that have transit, these are good places to build more. But I want to respect the fact that every California community looks a little different. The character, the land use policies, the type of transit, even within we talk about transit, even the kind of transit, these are going to look different. So every part of California, every community needs more housing and the right kind of housing that meets the needs of our workforce, but that there should be a role for local communities to have input, but not to just say no, 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 no. And if you wonder how I know cities do that, keep in mind I used to represent Huntington Beach, which is really ground zero for just saying no to additional housing. With regard to renters, this is a great and really important question, because what it recognizes is that we have to slow the pipeline, if not stop the pipeline of people becoming newly unhoused, newly homeless. So we've put a lot of money into permanent supportive housing, and we need to put a lot of money into building affordable housing, particularly deeply affordable housing. Those projects will never pencil for the market. So the state has a huge role in doing that. But protecting existing renters, keeping them where they are, using known and tested rental protection programs, things like rental assistance programs. So we know if you're on unemployment for 6 months or more, you're at very high risk of being evicted, for example. So thinking about helping to keep people where they are, helping them make their rent. Most people are not unable to pay rent forever. They are unable to pay rent sometimes. But usually the best chance they have of affording housing is staying where they are. That's also best for their kids. It's best for our communities, and it stretches our tax dollars the furthest by not increasing the number of people who need the very intensive homelessness services that those who are chronically or chronic homeless or street homeless often need.
Oh, thank you for that answer. Next up, last year's wildfires devastated communities across our region. As governor, how would you address the climate crisis while also helping communities rebuild and achieve long-term economic resilience after disasters like those that affected places like Palisades and Altadena?
Yeah, I am proud to be a climate champion and to be maybe one of the few actually climate champions in this race. We have a lot of others in this race who are taking money from petroleum and oil companies, and I'm not going to name them, but they are major candidates. So I am really, really proud to have a track record of not just refusing corporate money, but refusing money from those who have stood in the way again and again and again from greener, cleaner, and most importantly, cheaper energy. I served on the House Natural Resources Committee. I made environmental protection and climate a real priority. I think I put my time into that. I was proud to work on things like the Environmental Justice for All Act, designed to address environmental injustices. I'm a big champion for locally deployable water programs, stormwater capture, groundwater recharge, wetlands restoration, water recycling. These are all really, really important. Look, newer housing is more climate resilient. It is more wildfire resilient. So that's one of the things to recognize is as we build new housing or as we have funds to retrofit housing, things like different roofing materials make a tremendous difference. Sprinkler systems in our multifamily make a tremendous difference. And that newer housing is much more energy efficient, reducing the amount of capacity that we put on our grid. I think it's important that we reward homeowners who do harden their homes from wildfire. So the recent sustainable insurance strategy, which I think was way too long in coming, I want to be clear, but I do think it's the right step in the right direction to reward homeowners who do setbacks on brush, who put in new roofs, who do what they can within the bounds of the kind of housing they have. And I think we should support that for lower income Californians as well, so they are able to take advantage of those programs. Climate change is real. It is a real problem, and we need to push forward in California. So I spent yesterday touring a company called Stacks Engineering, which is now able to latch onto smokestacks coming off our tankers, both car tankers, container ships, oil tankers even, latch onto that so that when they are in port, they are no longer emitting nitrous oxide, sulfur oxide, and particulate matter. Those emissions cost us $6 billion a year in respiratory health. So one of the things I want to say about climate and investing in clean air and clean water, this is also about making sure people are healthy and stretching our healthcare dollars further.
Thank you so much. So now you've been known for your whole career as a single-payer healthcare supporter. Do you support the new CalCare AB 1900? Should we wait to pass it until we have a friendlier federal administration? And what concrete steps would you take as governor to expand coverage and reduce costs in the meantime?
Yep. So I've been a champion for single payer healthcare since I first ran for Congress successfully here in Orange County. Believe you me, when you try to flip a congressional seat, a lot of people tell you, you have to change your values. You can't fight for what you believe in. I showed that you can be someone who fights for your values, and you can win over swing voters. You can turn out base voters. You can win a tough seat and not only win it, but as the most progressive newly elected Democrat back in 2018 in our congressional delegation, many of them went on to unfortunately lose their seats, and I hung on to mine. And I think that's in part because I was always very straight with my constituents about what I believe. Here's the honest truth. Donald Trump has set our healthcare system on fire. We have to think about using all the different strategies we can try to put that fire out. It may be that he pulls back, as he pulls back even more, I intend to win all those congressional seats with Prop 50 and win back the House in 2028. That is my top political priority. And one thing that makes me different from other candidates is I know how to do it. I have flipped congressional seats. I have raised millions of dollars for candidates, and I have been on the ground for folks like Will Rollins and Derek Tran and Dave Min, endorsers of mine who have gone out and done that work. My point here is if Trump ends up pulling back even more, it may be single payers moment because we may have to rebuild from the ground up in California because we simply don't have a federal partner. Definitely the way Trump is pulling back on our healthcare system encourages, I think, the kind of innovation and reform in bringing down healthcare costs. I want to be really clear. The Affordable Care Act is important. I ran in 2018 in part to defend the Affordable Care Act. But the Affordable Care Act was designed to provide insurance and bring down and stabilize insurance costs. It was never intended to bring down that cost of care and stretch our healthcare dollars farther. That would be my priority as governor. We're the world's fourth largest economy. We're all tired of hearing it. Let's use that fact to leverage to get the very best prices, for example, on prescription drugs that we can, the very best contracts with insurance companies that we can. But I think the reality is no system delivers higher quality care with more consumer choice at a lower price point than single payer. It was true when I ran in 2018, and it is still true today.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Yeah, some applause in the room. We can applaud. So I want to be respectful of your time. I know you've got another event to go to, so I want to combine a few thoughts into one question here. California often finds itself in conflict these days with Washington in the Trump administration over issues ranging from immigration enforcement to election protection. As governor, one of your main roles is going to be pushing back against this administration. How do we push back against federal overreach, defend Californians' rights, and democratic institutions?
Yep. So first, let me take ICE just separately here. We should abolish ICE. This has to be something we are asking every single candidate who is running for federal office this cycle, whether they are an incumbent, whether they are a new candidate. There's simply no role for ICE in having a fair and orderly immigration system. All it is doing is making our immigration system more unfair, worse, more discriminatory, more bigoted, and deepening partisan divides on immigration rather than helping us find that path. The second question I encourage you to ask everybody is, will they support comprehensive immigration reform? Because we had the House in Congress, and we did not get this over the finish line. It went to the Senate, where it died when we tried to give permanent citizenship to Dreamers, for example, and people with TPS. Now we are watching a lot of those people with temporary protected status be deported. And they are our neighbors and our coworkers. This is not good for California's economy, and it's not good for the fabric of our society. So that's my first thing. I just want to say, abolish ICE. This to me is it should be a litmus test for any candidate in this moment at any level of government. The second thing I want to talk about is how I would approach Donald Trump generally, which is, look, I ran for Congress because Trump got elected the first time. And I am running for governor in part because, damn it, Trump got elected the second time. I am all about standing up to Donald Trump. But I want to be clear to you. In fairness to the other 7 candidates, Democratic candidates in this race, I think they all will oppose Donald Trump's policies. I think the difference between us is whether we have one strategy for how we're going to do that. That's beyond saying we'll oppose Trump, and I do. And the second is whether you're going to steadfastly refuse the temptation to use Donald Trump as an excuse for California's own failures and needs to address its own longstanding problems. So our housing shortage in California existed long before Donald Trump reared his ugly orange head. So if he makes everything worse, yes, but we have to own those separate problems. How would I stand up to Trump? One of the most important ways is working with other governors, thinking about how can we create across our states systems where governors are coming together to stand up to Trump. So I'm really proud that my colleagues that I was elected with in 2018, amazing women like Deb Haaland in New Mexico, she's going to become governor soon, Abigail Spanberger, already governor in Virginia, Mikey Sherrill, already governor in New Jersey. These are my peers. These are people who were elected in 2018 with me, and how we can figure out to stand together, whether it's on climate, whether it's on making investments in science and research, for example, whether it's thinking about tech policy in places like Virginia and California, which are both big tech and data center potential locations. Working with other governors is going to be a really, really important tool. And I have those relationships, and I have a vision for how California needs to lead. It's great to do our own thing. Sometimes California has done that. But part of what it means to lead isn't to say I'm going my own way. It's to say I'm going the right way. Please come with me. And that's how I would approach standing up to Trump in partnership with other governors.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Representative Porter. Really appreciate you coming back and taking the time to answer our questions. Also wanted to thank you publicly for becoming a gold sponsor of the Sammy Awards this weekend. Really grateful for that. So thank you so much for being here. Let's give it up for Katie Porter.
Have a terrific Sammy Awards.
Thank you so much. Okay, folks, our final guest tonight is the Sheriff of Los Angeles County. He was elected in 2022 after previously serving as the Chief of Police in Long Beach. He came into office with a mandate to bring reform and stability to the Sheriff's Department after a turbulent period. And he's now running for re-election and joining us tonight to talk about his record and his vision for the next 4 years. Let's please welcome Sheriff Robert Luna.
Well, good evening to all of you. It's absolutely an honor to be here in Santa Monica with each and every one of you. And thank you for being engaged at this level. You could be watching TV or going out having coffee, but you decided to sit here and do something that is absolutely critical to making our community better. And that's get politically engaged, pay attention to who you're voting for, look at the details, look at the fine line, look at where they come from, what they've done. That is absolutely critical. So just a little bit about my background and who I am. My name is Robert Luna, and I am currently your sheriff here in Los Angeles County. You're looking at a person who grew up always wanting to be in law enforcement. I say always, probably about the first or second grade. I grew up in the unincorporated area of East Los Angeles. My father migrated here from Sinaloa, Mexico. And my mom was born in Modesto, California, because her family, they were farm workers. So she just happened to be born up here as they were migrating between, she's from Michoacan, Mexico, migrating up and down through California, Oregon, and Washington to make money and then go back home. Somewhere along the line, my mom and dad were married in East Los Angeles. I'm the oldest of 3 kids. I told you I dreamt of being a police officer. Was not an easy journey. No one in my neighborhood trusted or liked the police. So when I told people this is what I wanted to do, no one was jumping for joy. Actually, my mom was deathly afraid, and my father had nothing but negative encounters with the police. He was sat on the sidewalk, told to put his hands on the hood of a police car. So it took them a long time. I was a pretty good kid overall. I listened to my parents. But obviously, if I'm standing in front of you as a sheriff of LA County, somewhere along the line, that's the path I ended up taking. I actually wanted to be a deputy sheriff, and someday when I have more time, I'll tell you why my journey diverted. But my journey ended up taking me to the city of Long Beach. where I proudly served there for 36 years. I was very blessed, was able to move around the department, a lot of specialized units, in a time where people like me weren't really given that many opportunities. And because I worked really hard, had a great attitude, and speaking Spanish really helped me a whole lot, I was able to get into some specialized units, and eventually I started to promote. It's interesting because I never really wanted to promote. I never left a job that I had where I wanted to leave. But I always ask people, have you ever worked for somebody you either disagreed with or just thought you could do a better job? And that's where I found myself over and over. But I got to tell you, my 7 years of experience as the chief of police in the city of Long Beach. Long Beach, for those of you who are not aware, is the second largest city in Los Angeles County, next to the city of Los Angeles. And those 7 years were absolutely incredible. People that I encounter all the time who are very satisfied with the way I'm performing said, where did you learn how to do this? And actually, I learned it in Long Beach because of the diverse community there, the diversity of issues, and really understanding and learning how to deal with the complexities of local government, which takes a lot of experience to get there and maneuver through that and deal with, for example, in Long Beach, where I could be at breakfast at the yacht club and people are concerned about their boats. And at night, I was at a meeting regarding shootings in a gang area because that was a diversity of the city. And that taught me so much. I decided to retire, and then I ran and campaigned for sheriff. And I don't spend much time talking about my predecessor. Like I tell my employees when I first got there, it was better to look forward and not always look in the rearview mirror, although you can't forget that because it teaches you valuable lessons. And, but if you remember where the sheriff's department was 4 years ago, it was full of chaos. It was full of dysfunction. And I need to tell you that when I first arrived, people asked me, when you lifted the hood, what did you see? There was a lot of challenges, but we had incredible employees that worked there. The men and women of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department are second to none. They're absolutely amazing. They just needed to be managed and led better. So I'm going to just give you some examples of some things that we did. One was the priority was to stabilize the organization. And that meant fixing or repairing a ton of fractured relationships with people at the Hall of Administration, with people at the Hall of, with the board, and with other political entities, which included law enforcement, because those relationships were broken. As a chief in LA County, I could tell you the relationships at the top weren't the greatest. As I stand here in front of you, I'm going to start talking about some of my accomplishments. And I'm just summarizing because I don't think I have the time to give you every single one of them. But the main one is if you looked at the conflict between the sheriff's department, and that's at the high levels, and the board of supervisors, was the budget. There was so much conflict over the budget. So what did I do? I went out and hired a CPA, somebody who actually can run a $4 billion budget. Before it was done by law enforcement personnel. That was one of the reasons for conflict. I can tell you that today, compared to where we were those 3.5 years ago, is completely a different story. And I'm going to stand here. I'm not going to give you every endorsement I have, although I have 3 pages of them. But I'm proud to stand up here and tell you that the 5 board of supervisors have endorsed me for my reelection. Why? Because they see I'm working with them hand in hand in a very professional manner. They can trust me. We can move ahead with projects. And why does that help? Because I'm able to put better equipment, better technology, and more resources in the field to support our community. So that was the stability part of it. I want to talk about crime, because that's probably the #1 issue as I traverse around this entire county. When I walked into the sheriff's department, I asked a simple question. What is our crime strategy? And I got a lot of answers. The bottom line, none of them were satisfactory to me. But crime was going up at the time. So to make a long story short there, we developed a crime strategy unit. And that crime strategy unit ran by our assistant sheriff over patrol, Myron Johnson, who's doing a great job. Every year that he's had this, we have reduced Part 1 crime. In 2025, we reduced it by 12%, which included a drop in homicide by 14%. And honestly, this is all it is. It's data-driven, it's partnership-based, which means each captain at each station is required to have relationships not only with their community members, but their business community. That is enhanced, it's better than it's been, and it's working. On top of the fact that each captain is responsible for understanding what crime trends are happening and how they're addressing them. Next, I want to talk a little bit about compliance. When I walked into the Sheriff's Department, I sat down with multiple attorneys from US DOJ. For those of you who do not know, I inherited 5 different either settlement agreements or court orders, 4 in our custody facilities and 1 in the Antelope Valley. That's more than any department in the United States. That's a challenge. Actually, some people go, why did you get into this? Well, I'm a problem solver, and I'm very committed to what I'm doing. And I can tell you this, and any of you can go look at lasd.org and get on our website and look at the progression that we've made in the last 3 years in compliance with each of our consent decrees. And I'll touch on the Antelope Valley. When the attorneys looked at us and said, you are going to get taken back to court to be held in contempt of court, which means you can go into receivership, which means a federal judge takes your department or parts of your department over. That was unacceptable to me. And one of the things that I did when I walked in, I established the Office of Constitutional Policing. I hired a woman by the name of Eileen Decker. I don't know if most of you know who Eileen Decker is. She's a former U.S. attorney, a former assistant mayor, and the former president of the the Los Angeles Police Commission. Her job was to, 1, get us into compliance, 2, deal with the deputy gang and clique issue that we had, and 3, significantly increase something that the department had ignored for many years, and that's risk management. And since she's been doing this, we've completely turned so many things around. Now, as I'm telling you about these accomplishments, I'm not telling you the job's done. There's actually a lot more work to do. And that's why I am running for re-election, and I'm asking for your support and endorsement to continue the path that we are on. And we are on a very good path. And by the way, as I'm talking about compliance, you should also know this. As I told you, crime has dropped. Here's another couple of factors that have dropped. Last year, our deputy-involved shootings dropped by 42%, at a time where other departments' deputy-involved shootings were rising. Matter of fact, I was contacted this week where we are going to get a special award by Axon that they've never given out before for the accomplishments that the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department has accomplished this last year. At the same time, we reduced uses of force in patrol by 11%, and in custody, 16%. And that's year after year that we're compounding it. And some people look at me and say, well, can you go any lower? Absolutely we can, and we will, because I'm setting a new standard, and that's the way it should be. That's what I talked about doing when I first came up here, and that is important. I talked about, let's talk about recruitment for a second. I also inherited a department that was very shorthanded, both for deputy sheriffs and professional staff. I didn't like where we were on recruiting. What did I do about it? I hired a marketing firm. Since I've hired this marketing firm, our recruitment numbers are up 25%. Each class has increased drastically from when I first got in. And interesting, for those of you who own businesses in here and understand executive management, that if you look at a chart of our department, we have a lot of new people and we have a lot of senior people. We're missing a lot of people in the middle, because over the years, the county decided to do freezes, so we're dealing with that. So just so you understand, anytime you talk about recruitment, you can't talk about it without retention. So I'm actually working hand in hand with the board, all 5 of them, and they're very willing to work with me on this, and the acting county CEO, where we are looking at a program that will retain employees, and I'm very close to getting that. I don't want to get into detail. Actually, the county's going to be putting something out in writing in the next week. That should really help our retention. Why? I want to make sure that our staffing is adequate for everyday use, plus the fact, and I'll talk a little bit more about it, that we have the World Cup coming in several months. We have the 2027 Super Bowl that's coming. We're getting that next here in Inglewood. And then we're going to be hosting the largest Olympics ever in the history of the world here in our backyard, and the Paralympics as well. Really excited about that. That's going to work out very, very well. I also want to spend some seconds talking about employee wellness. That is included in recruitment and retention. I want you to know that I have been working, when it comes to employee wellness in law enforcement, we've ignored it way too long. As a cop for almost 40 years, I could tell you that when I saw things that I shouldn't have seen and I wanted to talk to somebody, and this was years and years ago, the answer was, "Hey kid, this is why you became a cop, or why don't you go have a beer?" Is that the right answer? It is not. So what we're doing is we're modifying and changing what we do, and just making sure people know that it's okay to say, "I'm not okay anymore." And we've implemented programs. I've implemented wellness hours, giving people breaks, taking them out of the field, taking them out of custody facilities to go work out, to go read. We've put wellness rooms together that are being paid by private donors. I have a long list of about 20 items that we've been working on with employee wellness. You say, why am I so focused on that? If I can give you a deputy sheriff or a police officer that is more mentally healthy, they end up serving you much better, and their longevity is much longer. That's why it's critical. That's why we're working on it. And even for us in our disciplinary decisions now, and we've modified them over the last several years, that is always included. Why did this happen? Was there a pattern? And I got to be honest with you, for us in management, we are the ones that failed our employees. We did not pay attention. That is critical. That is important. That is something we're working on. I'm also modernizing the department. When I got there, we had a CAD system, a computer-aided dispatch system that was 38 years old, and it kept failing. And I'm asked a simple question, why haven't we replaced it? But like many other things, whether we're talking about custody buses, other equipment needs, vehicles, that poor relationship I talked about earlier was really impacting our ability to get the support we needed. Little by little, we're turning that around. And we're working on the CAD system I told you about. I got approval for that. I thank the LA County Board of Supervisors. When's the last time you heard a sheriff say, "I'm thanking the Board of Supervisors for their support"? I do that consistently because I am getting their support to support each and every one of you. That's going to cost several $1 million, should come online by the middle or the end of the summer, where our deputies are finally going to have something they can work on that's completely new. It will really revolutionize the way we do things. That is just one example. The other one is that I purchased Taser 10s. When I talked about the reduction of deputy-involved shootings, I invested money from other places, and I purchased 3,200 Taser 10s. Why does that make a difference? That 42% reduction I'm talking about didn't come by magic. It came by me walking in there, having a successful meet and confer with our labor unions, passed a new modern use of force policy with training that went with it, better accountability from supervisors and above, and all of a sudden, that's why you see these significant drops in uses of force and deputy-involved shootings. That is significant. A couple of other things, and I'll turn the mic over. And you could kick me if I'm going too long.
Take your time.
I want to talk a little bit about custody. Going back to, for those of you who do not know, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, I run 7 custody facilities with an average of 13,000 people in my care. 51% of the people in my care are mentally ill. It's estimated that up to 75% of them need medical care. We have a great partner in correctional health services. We work together on a lot of the challenges that we face. As a matter of fact, you've heard that through media reports, and reality is our in-custody deaths went up last year. Every single one of them, every time I get a notification, it negatively impacts me. I am currently working with the National Institute of Corrections, where they're going to come in and assist us with our policies. They're going to assist us in trying to do things better. I've never been afraid to pull up or pull back the curtain and say, hey, come and look at what we're doing. We have absolutely nothing to hide. I have correctional health on board with us. They're actually helping us pay for this effort, and we're doing a lot back there, or in custody. With the compliance rate in our custody facilities, I'll give you one example, but I can use this on every settlement agreement we have. When I walked into the job at our inmate reception center, the ACLU was suing us because people were being tethered to a seat and made wait for 24 to 48 hours. When I asked, why are we doing this? The answer was, boss, we don't have a great facility and we don't have enough staffing. And it's like, okay, how are you going to fix this? I always challenge somebody. I don't care about our staffing. I do care about our staffing, but it can't be an excuse to put people in our care at risk. Facility-wise, we're not going to grow a new facility. We'll work towards that. It's a long way of telling you this. I challenge my employees. I had some employees that were so creative, they developed a computer system that put everyone on a time clock, and for one entire year, and you can go research this yourself, we have been under compliance at the inmate reception center with the ACLU, who's been complimenting us about the changes that we're making. Because we have older facilities. We have challenges there, but that's not stopping us from trying to do the right thing. And honestly, this is what I tell people. I want you to treat somebody coming into our custody as you would somebody who was in your family. And actually, that is part of my leadership philosophy. You treat people the way you want your family members to be treated, no matter where you encounter them. I'm going to wrap up here with just a couple of thoughts for each and every one of you. Over the last 3 years, I've provided steady and reliable leadership. I'm going to take you back when I was on this job for about 2 or 3 months, and we had the worst mass shooting in LA County history in Monterey Park, where we had 11 deaths and 9 people wounded. I stood up with my partners. I lost track at about 80 cameras and spoke in a very competent, empathetic, and reassuring way to tell people, because unfortunately sometimes in law enforcement you have people come out who are literally trying to scare you. That's not my job. Months later, there were several incidents that have occurred, but I got to take you back to the beginning of 2025, where we had both the Palisades fire and the Eaton fires. The worst disaster in LA County history, times 2. One of them would have been the worst. Both of them put together, absolutely the worst. But our department responded very well. And again, compliments from the entire, we worked very well with the city of Los Angeles and other leaders up and down the state, where we were really helping each other out. And again, providing that leadership that needed to be provided. And then again, that was a man-made disaster. I'm sorry, that was a natural disaster. Then we had a man-made disaster in June and July of 2025, where we were going up against the federal government when they had federalized the National Guard. It was interesting because Jim McDonald and I, who have been friends for years and years and years, stood together. We talked to some of the federal officials. We talked to the military leaders. And I got to tell you, it was the most strangest situation where there was a big-time lack of communication and coordination when we were warning them, this is not the way to operate. Those were some tough times. We did get through it together. We're not out of the woods yet. I think we're probably going to see that, I'm guessing, again. But right now, dealing with the crisis, war, whatever you want to call it, in the Middle East, which has us very, very busy this weekend. So navigating through crises is something that I've actually come out, displayed, and gotten a lot of recognition for. I said this in the beginning, and I'm going to repeat it. When people are running for this position, you need to take a time out and look at their resumes. You need to figure out who they are, where they came from. If they're saying they were in a certain position, go find out. If somebody was applying for the chief of police job in Santa Monica or the city of Los Angeles, there would be multiple pages of prerequisites of what you need to get in there. You need to do the same because I run the largest sheriff's department in the country. You cannot take anything less than that. Please pay attention to detail. Look at what you're doing there. Don't listen just to people like me up here telling you how great I am. Go research what I'm telling you. It's all there. Talk to other people. Experience matters. Resume matters. Another quick fact. Do you know how many sheriffs we've had in the last 12 years? Anybody guess? We've had 5 sheriffs in the last 12 years. And every sheriff does a 4-year term. That is not acceptable. That is not consistent leadership. And as you want to be safe every day, and the impact Los Angeles County Sheriffs has not only in this region, but across the country, where, by the way, I take a significant leadership role at both the table with major county sheriffs and major city chiefs, you got to have somebody in there who understands relationships, has had them, can get on the phone like I did today with at least 3 different sheriffs and 2 different chiefs. And by the way, as I'm telling you about consistency and leadership, another endorsement that I proudly have is the police chiefs of Los Angeles County have come out to endorse my reelection campaign. Why? Because I work with them hand in hand. I help them whenever I can, and they can count on me at 3 in the morning when one of their officers goes down, and many other things that we've been involved in together. And as I tell you, we're getting ready for all these world events, and you need consistency and leadership. You need somebody that has a well-established relationship with somebody like Jim McDonald or Sean DeRee, the commissioner of the California Highway Patrol. I could go on and on with the names at the state level that I deal with, at the federal level. That's what we need as we move forward. One other item that I want to tell you about, and this is important. One of the challenges that I found of many when I walked into the sheriff's department, there were a lot of camps. You supported him, you supported her, you didn't support me. I knocked a lot of that off. It's like, I don't care who you supported. That's why when I started my promotional process at work, it wasn't based on who supported me, who was loyal to me by giving me campaign money. It was based on integrity, competence, and your ability to have relationships in the community. And I will not take $1 from one employee. And by the way, you can go look that up, and not one employee. I challenge you to go look at my other opponents, to look at who's giving them money. Tells you a lot about promises they're probably making in the future to people who shouldn't be in certain positions. With that, sir, I'm ready to take any questions you have.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much. I mean, let's give him a round of applause. So you basically answered almost all of the questions that we wrote, very efficiently, though. But there's one question I wanted to ask that a lot of people send in about pertaining to Santa Monica. One of the ways that Santa Monicans experience interact with the Sheriff's Department is at the end of the expo line, late at the last time in the last run of the night, that the people who are experiencing homelessness there are asked to leave and are sent into the streets of downtown Santa Monica. There's been a lot of question about that policy and whether it's the best way to treat that population. What's your experience been with how that program has started, evolved, and how do you think it's going now?
Excellent question. When I first arrived to do this job, again, going out and building relationships, not only with people in my 42 contract cities or 141 unincorporated communities, but also with cities with their own police departments. Right. And I remember at that time speaking with the mayor here, and he was very concerned, and really, I could just be blunt, he was very angry about the fact that he felt that we at the Sheriff's Department were not doing our jobs. Obviously, I immediately went back to my folks and said, what can we do to help Santa Monica? And we were getting the same complaints from Long Beach because they had the same issue going the other direction. I have not heard that complaint recently. If it's still happening, I need to know so we can work together. I have really good folks that work those lines. And whether you agree or disagree, if I take you back to several years ago, there was a lot of very negative media about the violence that was occurring on the trains, the platforms, and even the buses. And what we did is, one, we surged more deputies on the lines. We started to impact crime. But the other thing I did is I testified before the Metro Board, and I asked them, based on our statistics, if they could change their policy of not allowing people to ride the trains with not paying fare. And to me, I looked at the data, and it showed that like 75 or 80% of the people we were arresting for committing serious crimes had not paid their fare. Believe it or not, the board did change their policy. And when I say that, I understand there's people who may not be able to afford, and maybe there's a program that we can help them with. But generally, we need to be more accountable. Since we've done that, I don't know if any of you have noticed, those stories are gone. Does that mean the issue's gone? Probably not. But we're working closer together with all of our partner cities to make sure that I want my family to be able to get on the train and go anywhere they want and avoid any significant worries about violence. Just one other thing. Our host team on the LA County Sheriff's Department, I believe, is a model program in the United States. That's our Homeless Outreach Services team. And please know this, with the reputation I have for collaboration and partnerships, Governor Newsom several years ago approached me to help him make commercials for Proposition 1. He felt that I had enough credibility and the trust from a law enforcement perspective. And Proposition 1, if you remember, was an increase for us to create more bed space for people who are unhoused. And the reason I jumped on board is from a law enforcement perspective, or even if I put myself in a paramedic or fireman's shoes, I want more options for those men and women when they run into somebody who's mentally ill or addicted, that we have a bed for them somewhere. And we could get them the wraparound services they need so we can actually not take care of a problem for a day or two or a week, but it's a continuous fix. So we don't see that evolve over and over and over. And then I ended up supporting Measure A. So I guess what I'm just explaining is I'm not just looking at the problem in front of me. I'm being more strategic. And that's where my experience tells me, don't just be tactical, you gotta be strategic and try and take care of these problems in a more sophisticated, long-term problem-solving way.
Sure. All right, well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming out, and thanks so much for sharing.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, folks, well, before we adjourn, just a reminder, the Sammys are this Sunday. You can get your tickets in the back. It's not too late. You can still sponsor. We'll read your name at the event. We haven't even printed the sponsor list. It's not too late, don't worry. And the next membership meeting will be 2 weeks from tonight, Zoom only. We'll be voting on the endorsements for all these races. Let's give a round of applause to all the candidates from tonight. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time. Thank you and good night.